I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rosanna.
And on this podcast, we explore how to take life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursue a life worth living together. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 3 of the Relentless Pursuit podcast, The Fear of Missing Out.
Hashtag FOMO.
FOMO. You know, in a prior season, I talked about like one of my goals wanting to be JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what that was that you had coined.
Yeah, it was, okay. Well, I have not coined it because it's actually articles written about the joy of missing out being like, you know, taking a step back and not worrying about what everybody else is doing and what's going on, but like finding joy in what your present reality is and what your situation and circumstances are and not worrying about what anybody else is doing.
Okay, so this conversation is how to turn our FOMO into JOMO.
Sure.
You know, JOMO rearranged is mojo.
All right. Do you want to start this episode with a definition for FOMO, the fear of missing out?
Yes, I'll be the definition boy today.
All right.
All right. So I think it makes sense to start with the definition because we have to say, all right, what the heck are we talking about? So we're talking about the fear of missing out. And I think, first of all, we want to bring this up because it is kind of this pervasive experience, I think made even more pervasive by the presence of social media and by just telecommunications of all kinds. So I think it's good to just name it and capture what it is, consider to what extent we're experiencing this, and then just reshape our mindset so that we can have a more joyful experience in life.
Yeah, so get into that definition, and then I have a thought about that.
Okay. I actually have two brief ones here. This first one was from an interview in Time magazine. It says, FOMO is the uneasy and sometimes all-consuming feeling that you're missing out, that your peers are doing, in the know about, or in possession of more or something better than you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the second definition is similar. This is from NCBI. It says, it is the pervasive apprehension that others might be having rewarding experiences from which one is absent.
Okay. So now this fear of missing out, like this is something that people have talked about, obviously, most recently in the last few years. And like you had said, it's kind of what's the word? Exacerbated?
Close enough.
Exasperated by technology.
Exasperated
by technology because we can see what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is posting. Then it's kind of like we have this like longing of the fact that like we're not on vacation in Mexico right now, or we didn't get a fancy new car right now. And so it's like you can see what everybody's doing, who they're with, when they're doing it in real time. And so you're kind of always trying to keep up. And so that's an article I read said specifically like this is like the new version of keeping up with the Joneses, right? Mm-hmm. Like whether it's your neighbor next door or your coworker, like people always felt the need to keep up with someone. Like they set the pace for how much you should make and what kind of house you should have and what kind of car you should buy and what your family should look like. But you had to do that like in real time when you like met together. But now you don't even have to like know people.
Or at least it was limited to like your small sphere of geography, like right. Who's in your town or in your neighborhood. So now it could be people across the world.
Right. So it's kind of like this. You can see what everybody's doing and how they're doing it. And of course, I mean, we've had already conversations about technology, and we know that like they're overposed photos with filters to let everybody see your, you know, quote unquote best life.
Well, we all post our highlight reels anyway, right?
Sure. So what I saw in some of the research I did was research shows that the fear of missing out can stem from unhappiness and dissatisfaction with life, and that these feelings can propel us into greater social media usage.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like this just keeps going because you keep feeding into it.
Self-perpetuating cycle. That's a lot of what I read had said that too. Because it's like you have this itch that you want to scratch, and you scratch it by returning to social media to see what others are doing. But then it becomes this confirmation bias where you're kind of confirming to yourself that others are, in fact, leading more enriching lives than you are, which is, of course, is not the case, but it kind of seems that way. And then you get itchier and kind of return to social media. So
now I remember when our second son was born, Leo. So he was born in 2012. Instagram was, to me, I think, relatively new. Because at that point, that was probably the first time I had we had Apple phones, like at that point. Mm-hmm. We had just gotten some Apple phones, and I remember downloading the Gram. And I think my first...
So we didn't have smartphones until 2012.
Yeah, did we really hold out that long? I think we got an iPad in like 2010,
Okay.
and we had cell phones, but they weren't smartphones, because you're like less technology is better, and so we never like kind of made that leap. I think we had smartphones in 2010, but they weren't Apple. I think in 2012 we jumped to Apple. I think that's what it was. I remember having a different phone. And I remember like downloading Instagram. So I think my original like personal Instagram square is Leo, the day he was born. That's like my first square. And so, I remember being a mom before that and having FOMO and not knowing that it was FOMO, because with our first son, Jack, now I didn't have like a lot of social media. We had Facebook only at the time, but I had left a career of teaching for 5 years. I had just had a son. It was our decision jointly that I was going to stay home with him. But we were the first in our group of friends to have a baby. And I was like going to stay home. And so like I had left my colleagues, I had left everything I had built since we had been married, and was a stay-at-home mom. And I definitely had FOMO, right? Like you're suddenly just like at home. Everybody is like living their life, right? Our friends are married, no kids, dual income, traveling. Being a first-time mom is hard as it is. And I didn't have friends that could like kind of help me through that, because nobody was like in that same situation. And I always just kind of felt like a little bit lonely, a little bit lost. And I think
kind of look out, you're holding the baby, looking out the window, kind of envisioning a world out there that is doing things and passing you by or leaving you behind.
Sure. And even you were at work and you were achieving and you were in another master's program. And so there were things that you were able to do, that I wasn't able to do. But like the whole, like when I look back on it, it's like, but that was the choice that I made. And that was what was right for us. And even though I enjoyed it, and I remember those early days with Jack, I remember him being a baby on my lap, but I was also very isolated. And kind of like, then talking with people like, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that. And I'm like, oh, I'm at home watching TV, holding the baby, trying to take a shower. Like it was very different. And so like, that sets in of like, well, what could I be doing if I wasn't doing this? And I think I wasted a lot of time doing that. I think
just wondering what others were doing.
Yeah.
Or feeling like you weren't living up to what you could be doing.
Right. And so I think that mindset is one that definitely like held me back. Obviously through the years, we've had more kids, and I worked part-time at certain points, just to kind of like help with, groceries and bills and growing kids, and, started growing something of my own. And, for everything that you do, there's something that you're missing out on. Like even now as my business, the wedding industry is booming right now. I've booked more weddings. I get requests for weddings daily, multiple, right? Like every time I say yes to building my business, I'm saying no to something. So like this Saturday is our son's first baseball playoff game against like this big rival team. It's going to be heated, right? I booked a wedding months ago for this, and I'm going to miss that game.
Right.
And I'm going to be there for his game on Tuesday and his game on Friday after the rehearsal. But like I'm going to make those things, but I'm going to miss something.
Right.
And so it's, we can't let the fear of missing one thing like detract us from like something else that's really good.
See, I think you're bringing up an interesting point that I was thinking about as well. So we might be original here, because I was really trying to find other people who are talking about this. I couldn't find it. I'm sure it's out there. But everything that I read seemed, even like these definitions, kind of compare one's experience to someone else's experience, right? It's the fear of like being left out socially, or the fear that someone is leading a more enriching experience than you. So there's always this social comparison. I don't think FOMO is limited to that, though, and I think you're expressing that. I think there's this legitimate opportunity cost where we live in, I would say, like a particular time in society, and even in just an economic class where we're kind of have that message like you can do it all, you can have it all. But you realize that the more that you do and commit to and say yes to, there's an opportunity cost. And so I think that's the other half. Like, so exclude everybody, exclude the whole social factor. Anytime that you commit to or say yes to something, there's a piece of us that wonders what we're saying no to at the same time. And there's really too many opportunities. There's too much to do. We could never do it all. And so I think the fear of missing out is also this existential anxiety of like, what should I be doing with my time? If I could do anything, is this the right thing? Am I missing out on other things that later on I'm going to regret?
Well, and I feel like this has really like clicked for me most recently. Like I said, business is good for me right now. Like it's really good. It's scary good. It's crazy good. It's pushing me in new ways, and I'm going to have to figure some things out, and it's going to require some growth and all of that. And I've been I've been working for this for a really long time. And now that it's here, it would be very easy to say no when I've been working this whole time to say yes. So I've kind of made the decision is when the work is here, I'm going to work. And I'm going to say yes, like when people reach out and then we connect and, I give them my spiel and we end up signing a contract. And I'm going to work hard and I'm going to do a great job and I'm going to enjoy that. Because a lot of things that clients say over the phone is one of the main reasons I've booked you is because there's so much like joy and positivity in your voice when you talk about what you do. And they're right. I love what I do. But I also know that loving what I do is going to allow me to say yes to that, but it's going to force me to say no to some other things. And so I'm going to have to miss some things. But when you said we really can have it all, we can have it all, but we can't have it all simultaneously all of the time. So I'm going to be there for my kids and I'm going to be a great mom. And I'm going to be at probably 95% of their games. And there's going to be times that I'm going to miss. And that's okay. But for a long time, I didn't think I could do that, right?
Right. You feel like you can't miss any because it's like, oh, it's my kids, it's my responsibility.
Right.
And we've talked about mom guilt a little bit as well. But
so, yeah. So, I mean, I'm not looking at it as, I think when I was younger and when I was unsure of who I was and what I wanted, it was this comparison thing about, what vacation were they on or what car or whatever. But like what I've come to realize is like, yeah, that guy drives a Tesla, that guy drives an Audi, that guy drives that. Like the Catapanos don't roll like that. Like we could have that car, but it's like,
I wouldn't mind rolling like that.
But that's just not who we are. And that's not just what we prioritize. Right. And so like knowing who you are and what those priorities are, like that's what this, like the whole conversation, these first, 4 episodes are all about like mindset shifts. Like what is important to you and who are you really? And are you making, the right choices for who you are and what you say you want? And so we don't have to be afraid of missing out. We just have to be real with what we do want.
Yeah. All right, so I have a few other things here too. When I was first thinking about this episode, I thought of what was actually like a Verizon commercial for their access to like NFL games that they have in their smartphone plans. Okay. And so there's this big campaign. They've actually had this for a while, but they started like really promoting it with FOMO. Remember they had these commercials. It was fear of missing out on football. So they added FOMO with an F at the end of it.
Okay.
And they had these comical commercials, but they're also, if you watch them, and we'll link to this, but I encourage everyone to go and watch some of these because they're kind of sad at the same time. So one features a dad who's about to sit down to watch the football game, but then his daughter comes up and says, and she's dressed like a princess and says, "Dad, it's time to watch my princess show." And he's kind of like crying because he's missing out on football. And it otherwise featured like someone is at a wedding or someone is like shopping for something with their wife. And so it's like these, what would I think ordinarily be pleasant experiences ruined by the fact that you're missing a football game. But now the solution is you can still watch the football game and detach from the physical space that you're in and tune into the game on your phone. So I mean, it's comical because we do feel that way. It's like, oh, I really do want to watch the game, but now I'm pulled into this other setting where I don't want to do that. But I think that detachment, that came to my mind because that detachment is really what we end up experiencing. So I wrote down a few other thoughts too, that FOMO is wanting to be somewhere else or doing something else. It's like no matter how good I'm doing with my current experience, it's like the grass is always greener. So that's one of my questions that I'll get into later on. But you want to do something else. It doesn't have to only manifest with the way we use our devices, but it particularly manifests with our social media interest. And it's sort of, I would say, mentally leaving the space that we're physically in when we do that.
Well, and I think that's this next generation, like especially our kids' problem is like they will always be physically present, but their attention, what do they call it? The attention economy is being directed in so many different places. You can be on your phone and you can be physically in a room, but you are mentally gone, right? Yeah. How many times do we show up to family dinner and people are on their phones, right? And everybody's looking at something.
Family's pretty good about it, actually.
I know, but anybody who's listening, right? Anybody been to family dinner and everybody's got their phone out, right? And it doesn't matter what age they are, from 11 to 75, someone's on their phone usually at some point.
So there's a word for that, actually. So I'll teach everyone a new word. I learned this word. The word is phubbing. I think I mentioned this to you the other day. So it's PH ubbing.
Phubbing.
So it's phone snubbing.
Okay.
So when you're in the room with someone else, but you're tuned into your device. You're phubbing.
Yeah, I mean,
So quit phubbing.
quit phubbing.
Okay.
Well, what you had said about that was another definition of FOMO. There was a quote by Isaac Asimov that said, maybe happiness is this, not feeling like you should be elsewhere, doing something else, being someone else. Mm-hmm. And it's that idea of really being present, right? And not really worrying about like what people are doing right now.
Right. I think that's where JOMO comes in, like the being content with where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we went to dinner last night. We had a date. It was fabulous. We had great food. We had a bottle of wine. We laughed. We talked about a bunch of stuff. And I really wasn't worried about, like, you know, what so-and-so was doing tonight. I didn't really care.
Right.
I was so happy to be with
We're
you.
having a
just
great
to be
experience.
out.
I think
Yeah.
it's easy to enjoy that. So,
But the same thing is true of, I also don't feel the need to, I've realized this in the last couple years. And one of my, I don't want to say resolutions because it wasn't on my resolutions list, is I spend a lot of time with certain people, like even my parents. We see them very frequently. But I rarely have pictures with them because, like, when I'm with them, like, my phone is not out and, like, I'm just, like, in the moment with them. We're just BSing about this, or they're helping me with that, or my dad is replanting a bush that, you know, like,
right.
like I don't take pictures of it because, like, I'm living it.
Right.
And so, you know, I think with FOMO, with JOMO, with social media, right? Like this, I mean, social media and technology really play into this. It's like, are we so busy capturing the video or the image to post that we're actually not in the moment? And there are a lot of things I've missed in the last couple of months because I'm like, I'm just gonna hang back and watch it. I'm gonna watch it live,
right?
And I'm not gonna capture it for somebody else.
All right. So I have 10 symptoms of FOMO. So this is almost like Jeff Foxworthy. Like, you might have FOMO if
Jeff Foxworthy.
So
welcome to 1997.
Right. I'll read these and then we'll get into some of our questions for each other. All right. So I got this from Shoreline Recovery Center.
Okay.
Because a lot of what we found, you know, FOMO is connected to like mental health and overall well-being.
Yeah, I saw it linked with anxiety and depression.
Right. So it doesn't mean that, you know, you are anxious or depressed if you have FOMO. I think we all experience it. But when you have an abundance of this, then it can certainly lead to some detrimental impacts. All right. So number one symptom of FOMO, always saying yes.
Okay, you have to say yes because you're afraid if you don't show up, you're going to miss it.
You're going to miss it.
So even if you don't want to go to something, you're saying yes because you're afraid of what you might miss if you're not there.
Right.
Okay.
And that could be, you know, always saying yes could be a sign of other problems as well. So it's not exclusively FOMO, but if you take these collectively, if you can say yes to the majority of these, you might have FOMO.
Okay.
All right. Number two is feeling negative or excluded when you are missing out. Because we're always going to be missing out on something. So feeling like particularly strong feelings of negativity or exclusion when we are missing out.
When we're missing out, or like, so what do you mean? Like if someone hasn't invited you to something, you like internalize that?
That, I would say, could be one example.
Okay.
But just at any activity that you feel like you could or should be a part of that you're not. An overall low life satisfaction. Number four is high social media activity.
Interesting.
Right. So you might have FOMO if you have high social media activity. And you might just be flat out addicted. But that's one particular sign. Another one that I think touches upon what we were exploring too. Number five is a fast-paced lifestyle. Like constantly going from one activity to the next.
Without like rest, without like just time to like enjoy.
Without like contentedness or like time
trying to
in
do
between.
It all the time,
you got too much on your schedule. Number six is related to that. I really like this one. It's called shiny object syndrome, which is like you just tune your attention to the next shiny object. So there's no commitment. Right, you're intrigued with one thing, and then the moment something shiny comes up, then you're intrigued
shinier.
with that, something shinier, yeah. And then like that gets a little bit of your attention, and then the next shiny thing comes up. So you're not really like deeply interested in something, but you just like your attention just spasms from one topic to the next.
Okay.
Number seven is you are concerned about other people's opinions.
Okay.
Right, so kind of almost looking for positive validation from others. Number 8 is the urge to be surrounded by others. Number 9 is poor health behaviors. So that's interesting. There's a tie to the way you treat your health and FOMO. And number 10, I thought was interesting, distracted driving.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and what they say, like, because when you're driving, you really can't divert your attention, and so you feel like you literally are like missing out on other things, particularly social media. And so FOMO could be hazardous to your health to the extent, for example, like if you're driving, you're wondering what you're missing out on, you open up your phone while you're driving because you can't wait until you get home to check your social media or answer that text, and something bad happens.
Yeah, or like that you'll miss out. Like if you don't respond to this text right now, the person who's texting you will move on to the next person, and you've like missed your opportunity or your
missing
chance.
out on something interesting. Yeah. So again, those are 10 symptoms of FOMO. I think those are all symptoms of a great many things. But if you could say yes to quite a few of those, then you might be experiencing FOMO, which could lead to feelings of depression and anxiety.
Yeah. Where do you stand with FOMO? Not like where do you stand, but do you feel like what extent do you have a fear of missing out? Do you have it at all? Do you have it in certain arenas in your life? Like, is it like, can you connect with a fear of missing out in any way, shape, or form? I know for you, it's not like posting on social media or seeing what other people do, because you don't give a rip about either of those things. But do you feel like there are other areas of your life where FOMO is present?
Yes. I worry about it from a few different angles. Like one, I think I used to worry about it a little bit more, like career-wise, like what else could I be working towards professionally? And I still feel that way, but not as strongly. So I think that's one area. I would say for me, like even with the kids as well, and we talked a little bit about like this generation's parental anxieties, but right, for everything that I decide to say yes to for our children, get them signed up for something or committed to something, then you're saying no to some other things, right? We can't expect our kids to do it all, but even myself as well. Like even if I'm doing something, that I'm not facilitating something for our kids. Those are the first two that come to mind. I'm sure there are others. I would say like even with like social experiences that I don't feel like excluded or left out, but I do feel like maybe that's a piece that could be bigger that I haven't, I guess I'm fearful of like, reaching an old age and looking back and wishing I had like developed more relationships.
Well, and I think too, when I was younger, like I was like always, kind of worried about being like left behind. And so for a long time, I felt like I was always like in order to avoid that, like the ringleader of things, like I was like the person who'd be like, oh, let's do this, or like, let's do that. And like now I don't really care as much. Like if people want to spend time with me, like I'll wait for an invite. Like I'm not always the one to like go out and seek it. So like for me, it's been a little bit more of a reversal where it's like I used to head up all of that stuff. And I'm like, if someone like texts me, is like, hey, do you want to go out? Sure. But I'm not always like the first to ask, because I'm no longer as worried about like what people are doing without me or what they're doing in general. Mm-hmm. And I think that has just changed just because of obviously the number and ages of our kids. Like we facilitate a lot of their life, right? Like baseball and soccer and all of that. Like, so I let those be like our experiences, right? Or like who I'm talking with at the time. It's because we're surrounded by like those parents, but like I'm not worried about what I'm missing out on. Like we're at baseball, we're committed to our kids, we're committed to their season, and so we do those things. So I'm not as worried about that.
Yeah. All right. So that leads into my grass is greener question. Are there genuine things that we're missing out on, or is the grass just it always seems always greener on the other side? Or what's the whole phrase? The grass is always greener.
So it's funny because I wrote almost no notes for this episode. I wrote down the Isaac Asimov quote, and then under that I wrote, FOMO has to do with, and this was just kind of like my own thought about it, with thinking the grass is greener somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I said, but as everybody learns, the grass is only greener where you water it.
Right. That's deep. I can only think of Sebastian from The Little Mermaid. The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake.
Are you for real?
So that too. All right. So it seems like you're answering like the grass is greener where we water it.
Yeah.
So like where we give it the attention.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to seem greener on someone else's yard, so to speak. But once we go to that particular,
you're like, oh, look, there's a
place
patch of
or
clover
activity.
here. Oh, there's some dandelion over there. This
Right.
guy did an edge on the corner by his, like, right, from a distance, it all looks good.
Yeah.
Right? It all looks shiny, sparkly, and new. You get a little closer, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not exactly as it appears from here. I think part of the realization of that is just, like being in the community that we live in and getting to know like more and more parents. Like you do realize that everybody is busy with their own kids and with their own families, and they get together with their friends when they can, and they get together with their family when they can, and like everyone is genuinely just like living their life and taking care of what's theirs. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's less about like competition or trying to achieve what somebody else has had. Like everyone is in their own lane, achieving like what
everyone has their own responsibilities, their own interests,
right.
their own battles.
And it's right. Some people are struggling with, health. Some people are struggling with finances because of being out of work. Some people are struggling with parents who are ill. Like everybody's got something, and everybody's something is different, and everybody's handling it. But it's, I mean, for me, like I am not going to let a pretty Instagram picture like derail me anymore, because like, if you know people and if you know who they are in their hearts, like, that everyone's just doing the best that they can. Mm-hmm. And so when we feel insecure, right, we're making up these stories in our head about how their life is easier, bigger, better, brighter, that they have better friends, but like, it's not really what it is. Everyone's just doing the best that they can. And so like, it's almost like talking yourself out of this, right? I need to be more like them, or I need to do it like this because it's just better for them.
Right.
And it's not. It's everyone's doing their thing, and everyone's doing what's best for them. So I feel like it's this mindset
get out of the
thing.
game of the social comparison, because that's a losing game.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think it's just this mindset shift of everyone's doing the best that they can. And there are times that there are days, weeks, months that I don't post a picture of anything. And then there's ones that like, I just love my kids so much. Like I want to capture it and I put it on there. You have family that doesn't live in state. I have family. So I post it on there for people to see and get a little snapshot, but it's never to make somebody else feel bad. And when I see other moms posting stuff, just kind of back to social media, I never feel like I'm missing out or I'm not a good mom. I'm like, ooh, they took their kids to, the strawberry farm to pick strawberries. Oh, that's a cute idea. And like,
right.
I let that be like a way to like motivate me to like do something new or different with the kids that I haven't tried. And so I feel like that's now how I connect with social media. I don't comment on everyone's posts. I don't put a little heart like on everybody's like whatever. I try and take from it what I can. Mm-hmm. Right? Whether it's a workout someone's posted, or like a recipe for dinner, mm-hmm. or a place that they took the kids that like looked fun. Like when I post stuff, it's like for the same reason, like for someone to like have a new recipe or to be.
You're already coming from a place of like coming from a place of contentedness and confidence. So you're not going to social media to try to find it. You already have it, and so you can use social media a little bit more productively for yourself then, rather than letting it kind of be this confirmation bias where you feel that cringe of other people living a better life than you.
Right. And that's my intention for posting too. Like, oh, we went to this water park. You guys should check it out. Like, it's not because like you're a bad parent because you didn't take your kids there.
Sometimes you just have a great experience. You just want to share this.
Well, and I think too, like, now that the kids are older, like we get to do more fun things. But like, a mom texted me earlier this week and we're newer friends and her kids are little, and I said something about, oh, our pool is finally opening for the summer with like season passes and we can just go. And she said, I took my kids to the pool and they're all very small, and she's like, she like tripped and fell in and it was a bad experience. She's like, I don't think I can do a season pass. And I said, I forgot, your kids are a lot littler than me, so it'd be easy for her to get on social media, see, right, like all of these families at the pool, and like then like internalize that as like she's doing the wrong thing by keeping her kids back. But it's like, well, your kids are,
different.
1, 3, and 4. Like you're not there yet. And so I think maybe sometimes that's where some of that comparison comes in, and that fear of missing out, where it's like, I'm doing my kids a disservice, or this is what I should be doing. But it's like, it's apples and oranges when your kids are older, when their kids are younger. So I think it's just like this whole mindset thing of like, where are you? What do you need? What's best for you? And not letting what other people are doing set you back. And I think that's where it comes in, is like, are you letting other people's lives derail you?
Yeah.
And that's not fair. That's not fair to yourself,
Mm-hmm. You have other questions?
No, I did have one quote by Kathy Sullivan Wint, who is a PhD, a licensed psychologist, and founder of the New Connections Counseling Center. She said, in small doses, FOMO can be useful because it can motivate someone to do something that is ultimately satisfying for them. You know, it gives them a new idea, or it's like, oh my gosh, I saw this person. Wow, they've really gotten into shape, or they're like really like, you know, sometimes that's good to see someone succeed or
It's like
something.
positive peer pressure in a sense.
Right.
Okay.
It can inspire you to do more or to like reach towards something you're working for.
Okay. So it's all about like what we're gleaning from that. So we can glean negativity from that. Like we can feel like someone else is living a more enriching experience, and we can feel like the jealousy or the anxiety that comes with it. Or we can probably first of all acknowledge that it's probably not that much more of a rewarding experience. but even if it truly is, we can start asking more productive questions. Right? What did they do? What's their process? How can I achieve that experience for myself?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I have other questions, but I think we're veering towards some of the takeaways. And I listed questions for my takeaways, if you'll permit me.
Sure. I mean, I had some takeaways I thought of too, so maybe they're. Let's
All right, let me list my questions for takeaways.
All right,
then.
let's go.
And then you can maybe put a better cap on it with your statements here. All right, so question. I wrote down just questions to ask myself.
Okay.
I have 3. So I'll list all 3 of these for you lovely listeners out there, and then I'll break them down. Question number 1. What is a greater fear than just missing out? Question 2. What are you actually missing, and how do you build it in? And question 3. Would that other thing actually make you happier?
I love question 2.
Yeah.
I really love question 2. It's really intentional, and it really gets to the root of if there's a problem or if you're interpreting things wrong. It's like where that sensitive spot is. So I really like question 2.
Yeah.
Go back to question 1 again. What is it?
Okay, so question 1 is, what is a greater fear than just missing out? So for me, it's like the fear of regret. So missing out is a very in the moment experience, right? Regret is a
Hindsight,
reflection on a past experience. So for me, like the fear of regret would be like I would look back at maybe this stage in my life and regret wasting it chasing vain experiences.
Okay.
Just so I feel like I fit in. So that to me, like I want to avoid that feeling of regret more than I want to avoid the feeling of missing out, if that makes sense. So that's what
you're
I'm
not
trying to put myself in a position in the future to look back on and let that like attempt at hindsight guide the decisions that I make about what to pursue.
Well, which goes back to episode 1 about like writing your eulogy, right? And it's that question is so you in the sense that you're very forward thinking and you're very strategic, and you really don't care about shiny, flashy things in the here and in the now. Like you're never trying to keep up with anybody else, and you're not like a materialistic person. And that's one of the things I really like about you, because it helps me to be more like that when I think I can maybe sometimes get caught up in the shiny objects. So I mean, I just like that whole mindset. That's a good mentality to kind of work towards for you.
Yeah. So the second question, what are you actually missing, and how do you build it in? So I think like trying to name, like sometimes you let's just say you see a picture of a friend of yours on a beach, and like we all would feel that jealousy, right? I think that's a normal reaction, but like can you actually name what it is that you're missing out on? And how do you build it? Are you missing out on the social interaction that's a part of that? Well, okay, like how do I, if that's what I value and genuinely want, how do I go about building that in, right? So it's a more productive question. So instead of letting the anxiety or the jealousy be those might be like, I don't want to say we shouldn't have those feelings. I just think it's natural that we do. But instead of letting that like then dictate how we respond to things, just asking like, what is it that I feel like I wish I was experiencing or having right now? And then are there steps that I can actually take to build that in?
Right. Why am I feeling like this? Right. Their beach vacation should not impact my life or derail me from like day living or how I'm feeling. So if it is, what's the root of that?
Right. Or what is it? Is it the temporary getaway? Is it the luxury that it seems like that has? Like, can you name what it is that you're missing? And then once you can name it, is there a way to more legitimately pursue it?
Gotcha.
Right. And then the third question is, would that other thing actually make you happier? And I think that's a really challenging question, because I think 9 times out of 10, the answer would be no. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what one thing, if you added it to your life, could actually make you happier? I think it's arguable that happiness is accessible to us at any given moment, except, of course, in the midst of, like, genuine...
Well, you're talking contentment, not just happiness.
Sure.
Because happiness is fleeting, right? Something can make you happy, but are you content with what you have?
Yeah. And we have episodes of trauma and challenge, and sure. But I don't think that a given purchase or a given experience is going to change the status of our contentedness.
Yeah, and it shouldn't.
For the most part. So, again, like, just challenging myself with that question. What is that other experience or that item, and is it actually going to make me happier? Because then I have to pause and be like, well, actually, no, it's not. It doesn't mean it's wrong then to pursue it, but
if you know that this is
what is my center, and is this going to get me closer to that center, or is it just a distraction?
Okay.
All right, so those were my takeaways that I challenged myself with, those 3 questions.
Okay. So you want me to cap it with some of the thoughts that I had that I think we really kind of touched upon in the whole conversation.
All right, why don't you close this out? Take us home.
1, realize that you might not actually be missing out. Sometimes we convince ourselves that we are missing out on something, whether it's an experience, a relationship, an opportunity. Like, just step back and realize maybe you're not actually missing out, because what you have and where you are is right where you need to be. So that's number 1. Number 2, avoid overusing social media or using it to be negative or to like to pull negativity from other people, right? Like, we're not looking for people's faults.
There's an acronym for that.
Is there? What is it?
PSMU. Problematic social media use.
Did you find this in your research?
Yeah.
So you go onto social media with the intention of what?
Just the overuse of it.
Oh, the overuse of it.
Yeah.
So don't overuse it.
Well, social media is
Take a
great.
break.
Like, we should all use it. Yeah, but don't let it become problematic.
Yeah.
Don't overuse it.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, consider if you're the cause of your own FOMO. Ask yourself if your FOMO is about something bigger. And I think that's like kind of what those questions that you came up with address. Like, what am I missing? Why am I having this reaction? Like, their vacation or their car or their kids or their, like, it has nothing to do with me. So if I'm reacting to the people's lives in that way, like, are you causing your own FOMO? Is it because of your own insecurity, your own anxiety? Like, what's the root of the problem? So that's what you were just saying. And then number 4, be okay with not being able to do it all. It's the paradox of choice. I know that's a book. That's a book that you read.
Yes, I wanted to try to bring that in here, actually.
Yes, bring it up. The paradox of choice. Saying yes to one thing is always about saying no to something else. So, I mean, I think those are like 4 real kind of practical applications of like training your brain. Like, you're not missing out. You really aren't, right? And if social media is the cause, then take a little break or use it in a different way. Think about what the root issues are, and then be okay with not doing it all. So you're going to have to say yes to some things and no to others, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, great thoughts. So we'll pursue JOMO and Mojo as much as we can, and recognize that FOMO is a natural response and experience, but not one that we should let control us.
At the gym that I go to a Spanga branch in our local town here in Bloomingdale, and their big tagline is that it's always you versus you. Mm-hmm. And so it's being the best that you can be every day. And sometimes it's stronger than others, but it's not a comparison to everybody else.
Right.
And so I think it's another mindset shift. When you're at the gym, right, you're competing against your best. Mm-hmm. And you're doing your best. And so you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people's bests.
That's right. So Tony Hortner always says to do your best and forget the rest. All right. So on that note, people, Thanks for joining us again for another episode. If you haven't yet visited iTunes and left us a review, we encourage you to do so, and we appreciate that. And as always, keep us posted on your thoughts, experiences, and takeaways as well. And we always look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for joining us today.
See you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to today's show. We hope you'll use this conversation as a starting point for your own. We hope you're encouraged to think and act more intentionally.
If you want to learn more, you can visit our website, therelentlesspursuitpodcast.com, where you can find notes on today's show, plus additional blog posts, and you can subscribe to our free members list.
Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends.
Facebook and Instagram are two great places to connect with us for daily doses of our quotable quotes, behind the scenes, and real-time photos, videos, and challenges.
Until next time, let us know how you are taking life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursuing what matters.